What's up? My name's Roger, and I wanted to show you how I control my MIDI enabled time-based pedal that's like a delay or a reverb with my HX Stomp using MIDI. So this is yet again another YouTube video out there that none of us ever asked for, right? It's just another one, really? And why do we guys keep doing this? Well, we wanna maybe share some information, we wanna flex, we wanna do whatever, I don't know. But that's what's up. So why am I doing this video? What's my motivation? Well, I remember when I got this Tempest and it had MIDI, I wanted the HX Stomp and the Tempest to talk to one another and communicate, mainly to change presets and do that stuff. And I knew the Helix could do it because the Helix could do anything, right? The Helix floor. But what about the Stomp? So I did some research, a lot of research, and I had a hard time finding stuff. I just couldn't figure it out. And it's like, so I had to kind of go through the process, talk to some people. Of course, there are some bigger, better minds out there than me, that's for sure. So just keep scouring the internet for all these mega minds out there that know how to work this stuff. But I want to just show you what I do for my simple setup and a normal Sunday, switching presets and tap tempo only, right? That's what this does, and I think that's what the HX Stomp does really well, and that's all it can do, is to send messages to the Tempest through tap tempo and preset changes. Can it do more in the future? Maybe with the upgrade with 3.0, maybe, right? Who knows? I don't know. But for right now, controlling presets and controlling tap tempo, that's plenty for me, man. That's pretty darn cool. And that's the Tempest is the only MIDI-based pedal I have on my board. So I'm not going to go through what all these pedals do. You know what they do already. The compressor, volume pedal, tuner, whatever. JHS controls my drive section, obviously, with the Morning Glory and a kilt. So kilt's pretty wicked. I just got that thing, and man, it's fun. And the red remote can trick into that. This is a normally open TS switch that controls the infinity function in the Tempest for just a note that lasts for infinity. Yay. And I have Tempest connected to the Stomp via MIDI, and we'll talk about that later. If there's one thing you're going to get, especially if you're going to do the thing that I'm going to do, how to control it, is I would suggest at least the very minimum is a 2-button switch. I know there's some on Amazon that are pretty cheap. You could get a Jet Micro too. That's a MIDI controller that will probably open up even more options than what I'm doing right now. Some of you guys might watch this video and it's like, man, you're pretty limited in what you're doing, bro. It's like, yeah, but it works for me. So like snapshots and all that stuff, I haven't really gotten too much into it. I just think this is simple for me and how it works. But yeah, get some kind of controller, whether it's a MIDI-based controller like the MC6 or the Disaster Area or the Jet Micro, but at least get that, because you won't be able to do the things that we're going to do unless you get that. Cool. So let's talk about why it's something like the Tempest or another delay and reverb together. I got the Tempest because it's tight and it's cool and it competes with all the big guys out there, the big skies and all that. But mainly because I got it because it could do delay and reverb or reverb when I needed to. So let's say on a certain preset or song, I have all the blocks taken up and I don't have room for something else. What I mean by something else is another delay. And sometimes a song might pop up on Planning Center or whatever, like Who You Say I Am. It's like, hey, you better use that dual delay. And it's like, what? I'm out of blocks. I don't have another space for a dual delay. My amps have to stay where they are. The EQ has to stay where they are. What do I do? Well, that's what's great about having a delay and reverb pedal together, MIDI enabled with the Stomp. So that's like the Tempest, that's like the Source Audio Collider. You could add another delay on top of what you already have in your Stomp to get that dual delay that you need. So that's why I got this. And the Tempest, it's not as I'm gonna admit, I think the Collider has a Tempest beat on the Collider. It could do 2 engines at once versus the Tempest that can only do 1 engine at once. So I can only do A and not B together, whereas the Collider I could do a delay plus a reverb on top of that, and then on top of that you could have whatever you got going on in the Stomp. So once the Tempest, or if the Tempest could do that, man alive, watch out. but the Collider has the Tempest beat on that. I really like the Tempest because it has a digital readout right here to let me know where I am at all times instead of just like, hey, this is the LED light that's on. So that's just me. You know, maybe it's old millennial stuff that I'm just dealing with, but whatever. So let's talk about what we're dealing here. So using my 2-button switch here, I could control the stomp. And what I would want to do when I bank down, you can see it's all my fountains right here is the song, the preset. I have all the things I have laid out for here. And then I want to bank down. That's a swells. And then another song will be I Will Wait. And then you can see how the Tempest changed while I did that. You could just keep going and see how the Tempest continues to change as I move down through my presets that are based on songs. All right. So let's go back up to All My Fountains by Chris Tomlin. So I could, and I'll show you how to do this in a little bit, I could name, and all my fountains will show up right here on the screen, and you can see it's like, okay, well, I know where I am on my preset and on my reverb. I'm on all my fountains. And something like all my fountains, especially lately since we're kind of chilling and we're all kind of by ourselves, something like all my fountains, in the beginning part, we already know you have those big swells where you have to do that kind of like shimmery sound. So like something like this. That's not the whole song, right? That's not the whole song. So I can't change that on the fly by bending over and moving it. Well, what's cool about the Tempest and other pedals as well is I could have each preset has 2 different verbs. So I could just go over here and click this thing, and then it's a shorter verb, right? It's a shorter verb. There you go. Okay, so now that we've seen how the board works, let's set this up on the HX Stomp first. The first thing to do is make sure you put your one MIDI cable and the MIDI through on the Stomp, the MIDI through, that's very important. And then you go to global and then connect it to your MIDI enabled reverb delay. Then you go to global settings. This is what I usually do right here. You can't really make it out on the screen here, but once you know it's global settings. And then you go over here to MIDI to set it up. So you go all the way to this MIDI symbol right here. So make sure your MIDI is in channel 1, and then you're going to make sure that your other pedal will be in channel 1 as well. Make sure your MIDI through is on and your RX clock is off. And then you scroll to the next page over here. Your TX MIDI clock needs to be set at MIDI, tempo select a preset, and then my BPMs. And then if you go over to the next one, USB MIDI is on, and then USB plus MIDI in that setting, and then the same for the other PXTX. So that's how you set it up on the HX Stomp, and it should be ready to go once you plug in your MIDI cable from the HX Stomp to your MIDI enabled verb/delay. So let's get on it. So these are the 2 digital systems that I have up. Notice on the HX Edit side, you can see that I set up my presets to songs. So all my fountains, I Will Wait, Good Grace, Beautiful Night, all the stuff that we do at church. And my banks just go through that. And then over here on the Tempest side, it's the same thing. I could name the presets if I want, like all my fountains with the long verb or all my fountains with the short verb. Just depends on how I want to do it. I've kind of given up on naming presets on the Tempest because I don't really care anymore. At first I thought it was pretty cool, but then I was like, oh, it's just a waste of time. If I know it's there, I know it's there, so who cares? The trick to this, and it's so simple, honestly, the songs, how I sync them, quote unquote, and I use that term loosely, is sync loosely, is they're not totally synced per se, but they are. So if I want all my fountains long and all my fountains short to stay with the preset on all my fountains with the Stomp, I just put all my fountains at the top. You see it's at the top of 1A, And then over here in Spec Lab, I have all my fountains with a long verb and all my fountains with the short verb in bank A and B on page 1. So when I switch them up, right now this Tempest and the Stomp are both on all my fountains. So pardon the jerkiness, we're gonna go look at the board real fast to check it out. So you can see I have all my fountains right there, and I got all my fountains long and all my fountains short. And that's that. Now if I wanted to bank down, that will take me to a swell section. That's from Worship Tutorials. It was free. It's pretty awesome. Notice that how that stays there, right? That stays there on all my fountains short. That's what the Tempest does. So that's why I usually I put a preset, just a filler preset in the Stomp and the Tempest as well, or not so much the Tempest. So what do I mean by that is that once the Tempest moves down on bank A and B, if that makes any sense. So if I bank down on the Stomp, the Tempest is going to bank down to B, right? It's going to go to the B engine. Well, if I had another song in 0-1B, and I'm not in the verb I want because it banked down to bank B on the first bank, and it didn't bank down to 2A, right? And that means I won't have two other verbs at my disposal. So what I usually like to do is I like to put whatever preset in between. Like I said, Worship Tutorial swells, I put that in between just in case I want to do something like that. Or even another song that you just throw in there. It's like you just skip it. But what that does is that syncs up the Tempest, or maybe your other MIDI enabled device. It syncs it up with your song preset, right? So if I were to go back over here, I have the filler swells. I don't want I will wait. I don't want all my fountains short to be on there. But let's forgive the jerkiness as well. If we go back over here, if I spank up, I'm at all my fountains long. I could go after it and do it instead. Okay, bam, next song is I will wait. So if I bank down, I will wait. I'm at the 2 I want, right? So if I wanted to do my infinity thing, I have this available as well. And then I have another verb. And remember, in the Tempest, this is just a Tempest, but maybe even with the Collider, I don't know. I could only spill over if I have the same algorithm, so that's why I have infinity together. Sounds pretty good. And then I just bank down some more. So if I want to bank down again, I do a swells. See how it banked to B. Well, that's not what I want for the next song, so I just skipped down and then I did Good Grace, and I did swell again because I come in with those swells and things like that. Now I have verbs at my disposal for Good Grace, and I wanted to spill over, so I have two swells together, long and short, and so on and so forth. Now, Beautiful Name I just threw in there as a filler. I don't think we did that song, so I just threw that in there as a filler song. And then Cornerstone, I wanted the nuance. This was a shorter verb to a long verb for that little turnaround, and then back to the short one again. And that's how it goes. Let's go back over to the computer over here. So for the Tempest, you could do all these things, mess around with Spec Lab if you want. I have to keep connecting. For some reason it loses its connection for some reason. So I just keep connecting, and then I just type in what I want in here. It's temperamental for some reason. I set up my parameters here, or I could set up on the pedal itself, doesn't matter. And then I save it. And then when I want to write it on the pedal, I just got to make sure I hit that right, but make sure you do that connect there. So let's really fast talk about how you set up Tempest, or maybe your another MIDI enabled device to talk to the Stomp. So we go over here to MIDI configuration, You make sure you're on MIDI channel 1, MIDI channel 1, MIDI channel 1. And then you could see all the different parameters right down there. And I don't think I even changed these. I just changed MIDI channel 1 and I pressed confirm, and it just did it. It just did it. So get you some. And then just hit confirm. And yeah, I want to do that. Thank you. I'm ready to rock and roll.